What kind of grandmother opens her door in a deadly blizzard to 8 Hells Angels bikers everyone else would leave to die? On a freezing night in Detroit, when the entire city shut down to survive the cold, 67-year-old Gloria Hayes made a choice no one else would. She opened her door to 8 strangers, men wearing patches the world had been taught to fear. But what Gloria didn't know was that her decision wouldn't just save their lives that night. Because when those men came back at dawn, the truth they brought with them would change her life forever. The wind howled like something alive. It scraped against the walls of the small house, rattling the loose siding, slipping through cracks that no amount of tape or old cloth could fully seal. Snow slammed sideways against the windows, thick and relentless, turning the outside world into nothing but white noise and blurred shadows. Inside, Gloria Hayes sat wrapped in 2 blankets in her worn recliner, her hands wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug that had long since gone cold. 67 years old, and she could still tell the difference between a bad storm and a dangerous one. This one was dangerous. The heater clicked weakly in the corner, struggling more than working. Gloria had turned the thermostat down to 58 earlier that evening. Any higher, and she'd have to start choosing between warmth and groceries again next month. She had done that math too many times already. She shifted slightly, wincing as her back protested. The old house creaked in response, like it felt everything she felt. "Just one night," she murmured to herself, her voice barely louder than the storm. "Just get through one night." The television flickered in the corner, the signal cutting in and out. A weather anchor's voice broke through the static. Whiteout conditions, travel strongly discouraged, life-threatening exposure in under 30 minutes. Gloria didn't need the warning. She already knew. She reached for the remote and turned the TV off. Silence didn't follow. The storm filled every inch of space, pressing in from all sides. For a moment, she closed her eyes. And in that moment, the house felt even emptier. It had been 3 years since Jerome passed. Heart attack, sudden and quiet, right there in the kitchen. One minute he was laughing about something on the radio, the next, Gloria swallowed and opened her eyes again. "Not tonight," she whispered. "I ain't going down that road tonight." She tightened the blanket around her shoulders and leaned back, trying to ignore the cold creeping up through the floorboards. That's when she heard it. A sharp sound. Distant. Almost swallowed by the wind. Gloria froze. Her head tilted slightly, listening. Nothing. Just the storm again. She exhaled slowly, shaking her head. "Old ears playing tricks," she muttered. Then it came again. Louder this time. A knock. Not gentle, not polite. Desperate. Her body stiffened instantly. Nobody should be out there. Not tonight. Her heart began to beat faster, a steady thump against her ribs as her eyes moved toward the front door. Another knock. Harder. Followed by something else. Something that didn't belong in the rhythm of the storm. A voice. Faint. Broken by the wind. "Help!" Gloria's fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. No. No, no, no. Every instinct she had told her to stay right where she was. People didn't knock on doors in storms like this unless something was wrong. Or unless they were trouble. Her mind moved fast, faster than her body ever could at her age. News stories, break-ins, people pretending to need help just to get inside. And her, a 67-year-old woman, alone, no security system, no one nearby who would hear her scream. Another knock slammed against the door. "Please." The voice cracked this time. Gloria flinched. Her chest tightened. "Lord," she whispered, her breath shaky. "Don't do this to me tonight." She stayed frozen for a long moment, staring at the door like it might open on its own. Then came a dull thud, like something or someone had collapsed against it. That sound hit different. It cut through the fear. Gloria pushed the blanket off slowly, her joints protesting as she stood up. Her knees felt weak, but she forced herself forward. Step by step. The wooden floor creaked under her weight as she made her way down the short hallway. The closer she got to the door, the louder the storm seemed, like it was trying to warn her or stop her. She reached the door and paused. Her hand hovered over the lock. 5 seconds. 10. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure whoever was outside could hear it. "Go away," she whispered under her breath. "Please, just go away." Another voice, barely audible now. Freezing. Gloria closed her eyes. And for just a second, she wasn't in her hallway anymore. She was standing outside a different door. Years ago. Cold, hungry, invisible, knocking, and nobody opening. Her eyes snapped open. The memory hit like a punch to the chest. "Lord, help me," she murmured. Her hand moved. She unlocked the first lock, then the second, then the third, each click louder than the last. When she pulled the door open, the storm rushed in like it had been waiting. Cold air slammed into her face, stealing her breath instantly. Snow swirled into the hallway, coating the floor in seconds. And there they were. 8 men. Huge, broad-shouldered, covered in leather and snow. Motorcycles lay scattered behind them, half buried in white, their dark shapes barely visible through the storm. The men themselves looked worse. One was on his knees. Another slumped against the railing. 2 of them were holding each other up, barely standing. Their faces, Gloria's stomach dropped. Pale, lips blue, eyes glassy, dying. And on their backs, even through the snow, even through the chaos, she saw it. The patch, a skull with wings. Hell's angels. Gloria took a step back, instinct screaming. Everything she had ever heard about them rushed into her mind at once. Danger, violence, trouble, not people you invite inside, not people you trust. One of the men lifted his head barely. His eyes found hers. There was no threat in them, no anger, just desperation. "Ma'am," he rasped, his voice breaking apart in the wind. "If you don't help." He couldn't finish. Another man behind him collapsed fully into the snow. Gloria's breath caught. 8 men. All of them bigger than her. All of them strangers. All of them wearing something that should have made her slam the door shut without a second thought. The storm howled louder, as if urging her to choose. Her hand tightened on the edge of the door. Inside. Warmth. Safety. The last bit of control she had left in her life. Outside. 8 men who might be dangerous. 8 men who were definitely dying. Her chest rose and fell slowly. Fear pressed in from one side. Memory from the other. She looked at them again. Really looked. Not at the patches. Not at the leather. At the men. Shaking. Barely breathing. Human. Gloria Hayes exhaled slowly. Then she opened the door wider. "Get inside," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. "All of you." Now. For a split second, none of them moved, like they didn't believe her. Then the first man stumbled forward, and everything changed. The moment he crossed the threshold, his body gave out. He hit the floor hard, the sound dull against the old wood, his weight shaking the narrow hallway. Snow clung to his jacket, melting instantly into dark patches on the worn rug. His breath came in shallow, broken bursts, barely there. Hey, stay with me, Gloria said quickly, her voice rising despite herself. The others followed, one by one, stumbling, dragging, leaning on each other just to stay upright. They filled the small space in seconds, bringing the storm in with them. Snow, cold, and something heavier, something that didn't belong in her quiet home. Fear. Gloria pushed the door shut with all the strength she had, fighting the wind until it finally clicked closed. The silence that followed felt almost violent. 8 men. In her house. Her heart pounded so hard she had to press a hand against her chest. Move, she said, sharper now, the tone she used to use years ago when a lunch line got out of control. Don't just stand there. Move further in. We need to get you warm. One of them, tall, broad, his face pale under a beard dusted with ice, nodded weakly. Yes, ma'am, he managed. That ma'am caught her off guard. They weren't acting like men she needed to be afraid of. They were acting like men who didn't expect to survive the night. Gloria moved fast, faster than her body wanted to. She grabbed the nearest arm, guiding one of them toward the living room. Sit. All of you, sit down, wherever you can. They didn't argue, didn't question. They just obeyed. One collapsed onto the couch, another slid down against the wall, leaving a wet trail behind him. A third sank onto the floor, his head hanging low, his breath visible in the cold air. Gloria turned, scanning them quickly. 8. All here. All alive. For now. Lord, she whispered under her breath. What have I done? But there was no time to answer that. She moved to the hallway closet and yanked the door open. Blankets, old, mismatched, thin in places from years of use. She grabbed all of them. Every last one. When she came back, she started throwing them over shoulders, wrapping them around bodies that barely reacted. Keep these on, she said. Don't take them off. You hear me? A few weak nods. One man didn't respond at all. Gloria's eyes snapped to him. He was slumped sideways, his head tilted too far, his chest barely moving. No, don't you do that, she said, dropping to her knees beside him. Her fingers found his neck. Pulse. Faint. Too faint. Hey, she said, patting his cheek lightly. You hear me? Stay with me. Nothing. Her stomach tightened. She'd seen this before. Not like this, but close enough. Years in a cafeteria didn't just teach you how to serve food. It taught you how to see people. Who was hungry, who was sick, who was about to pass out and needed someone to catch them before they hit the ground. This was worse, much worse. All right, she muttered, forcing herself to think. Think, Gloria, think. She pushed herself up and moved to the kitchen, her steps quick, urgent. The floor felt colder now, or maybe it was just her. The stove. She turned the knob and the old gas burner clicked, then flared to life. Thank God. She grabbed the kettle, filled it halfway, set it on the flame. Behind her, she could hear movement, low voices, strained. Danny, hey, Danny, I'm here. Stay awake, man. Good. They were still fighting. Gloria turned back toward the living room. You. She pointed at the man closest to her, the one who had called her ma'am. What's your name? He blinked slowly, like the question took effort. Daniel, he said. His voice was rough, scraped raw. Daniel Reed. Daniel, she repeated, grounding herself in it. You need to keep them awake. Talk to them. Don't let anybody fall asleep. You hear me? He nodded, more alert now, like the responsibility gave him something to hold on to. Yes, ma'am. Good. She moved again, grabbing old towels from a drawer, soaking them lightly in warm water once the kettle began to steam. When she came back, she pressed one gently against the cheek of the man who hadn't responded. Come on now, she murmured, softer this time. Come back. You're not done yet. The warmth helped. Barely. But it helped. The man's eyelids twitched. A small sound escaped him. Relief flooded through her so suddenly it made her dizzy. That's it, she said quickly. That's it. Stay with me. Across the room, Daniel was doing exactly what she asked. His voice, though weak, carried a steady rhythm. Hey, talk to me. What's your name? Tommy. All right, Tommy, stay with me, man. We're inside now. You hear me? Another voice, trembling but alive. Cold. I know. I know. Just stay awake. Gloria watched them for a moment. 8 men. Big, strong men. Reduced to this. And suddenly, the patches didn't matter. The leather didn't matter. None of it did. They were just people trying not to die. She turned back to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Light spilled out, weak but steady. Inside, a pot of turkey soup. Her plan for the week. 3, maybe 4 meals if she stretched it. She stood there for a second. Staring. Calculating. Then she pulled it out. Set it on the stove. No hesitation. Food later, she muttered. Warmth first. She worked in silence after that, moving between rooms, checking on each of them, adjusting blankets, handing out warm towels. Time blurred. Minutes felt like hours. Or maybe it was the other way around. At some point, Daniel looked up at her again. His eyes were clearer now. Focused. He studied her for a moment, like he was trying to understand something. Why? He asked quietly. Gloria paused. The question hung in the air. Heavy. Simple. Dangerous. She met his eyes. Because somebody should have done it for me once, she said. She didn't explain. Didn't need to. Daniel nodded slowly, like that answer meant more than she could see. Outside, the storm kept raging. Inside, 8 men fought to stay alive. And Gloria Hayes, a woman the world had forgotten, stood in the middle of it all, holding the line between life and death. For people everyone else would have left behind. She glanced toward the window. The snow had gotten worse. Much worse. No headlights, no sirens, no help coming. Her chest tightened again. Because the truth settled in, quiet and cold. They weren't getting rescued tonight. Not by anyone else. Which meant... She looked back at the 8 men in her living room, then at the empty hallway, then at the door, and a thought formed, slow and heavy. If anything happened, if one of them stopped breathing again, if the heat failed, it would all be on her. Gloria swallowed hard. All right, she whispered to herself. Then we just don't let that happen. Behind her, Daniel shifted slightly, and for just a second, his eyes caught something on the far wall. An old picture frame. His gaze lingered, longer than it should have, like he recognized it, like it meant something. His brow furrowed. Confusion. Then something else. But before he could speak, the man beside him suddenly gasped sharply. His body jerked, and everything snapped back into chaos. The man's chest rose sharply, like he'd been pulled back from somewhere deep and dark. His arms twitched, fingers curling into fists as a ragged gasp tore through him. "Hey, hey, stay with me!" Daniel's voice cut through the room, louder now, stronger. Gloria dropped the towel in her hand and rushed over, her knees protesting as she knelt beside them. "What happened?" she demanded. He stopped breathing for a second, Daniel said, his voice tight but controlled. "I think he's coming back." The man coughed suddenly, harsh and wet, his whole body shaking with the effort. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then slowly locking onto the ceiling. Air. He was getting air. Gloria exhaled so hard, it almost made her dizzy. "Don't you scare me like that," she muttered, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "You hear me? You don't get to give up in my house." The man didn't respond, but his breathing steadied, shallow but consistent. Across the room, the others shifted, their energy changing. There was fear in their eyes now, not the fear of Gloria, not the fear of being in a stranger's home, the fear of losing one of their own. Daniel looked up at her again, something sharper behind his gaze this time. "You know what you're doing," he said quietly. Gloria snorted softly, pushing herself back to her feet. "I know enough," she said, "and enough is going to have to be enough tonight." She moved quickly, grabbing another blanket, tucking it tighter around the man who had nearly slipped away. "Keep talking to him," she added. "Don't let him drift." Daniel nodded, already leaning in. "Hey, man, stay with me. You hear me? You're not going anywhere tonight." The room settled again, but the tension didn't leave. If anything, it deepened. Gloria stepped back, scanning all 8 of them again. One by one. Breathing, shivering. Alive, but barely. She wiped her hands on her sweater, her fingers trembling now, not from cold, but from the weight of it all pressing down on her. 8 lives. All depending on her. The thought made her chest tighten again. "All right," she said, more to herself than to them. "We're not done yet." She turned toward the kitchen, grabbing the pot of soup now warming on the stove. Steam curled up into the air, carrying a faint smell of herbs and turkey. It wasn't much, but it was something. She grabbed bowls, mismatched, chipped, the last of what she had, and began ladling the soup carefully. Behind her, she could hear voices again, low and rough. "Can't feel my hands. Keep moving them. Don't stop. You think we're going to make it?" A pause. Then Daniel's voice again. "We are. She's got us." Gloria froze for just a second at that. "She's got us." The words landed heavier than anything else that night, because she wasn't sure she did. But she didn't turn around, didn't say anything. She just kept moving. One bowl at a time, she carried them into the living room. "Here," she said, handing the first one to Daniel. "Slow. Don't let it burn you." He took it carefully, his hands shaking. "Thank you," he said. Not rushed, not automatic. Real. Gloria nodded once, then moved to the next man and the next. Each one took the bowl like it mattered, like it was more than just food. Some could barely hold it. Others sipped slowly, their faces tightening as the warmth spread. The room began to change. Not warmer, not really, but alive. More alive than it had been minutes ago. Gloria finally sat down for the first time since opening the door, lowering herself into the edge of her chair with a quiet groan. Her body ached, every joint, every muscle, but she didn't let herself stay there long. Her eyes kept moving, watching, counting. 8. Still 8. Still breathing. Outside, the storm roared louder, shaking the windows again. The lights flickered once, twice. Gloria's head snapped toward the ceiling. "No," she whispered. "Don't you do that." The lights steadied. For now, she leaned back slightly, exhaling. For a moment, just a moment, the room felt still. Then came a sound. Distant at first, then closer. A car engine. Gloria frowned. That wasn't normal. Not out here. Not in this storm. She pushed herself up again, slower this time, and walked toward the window. She wiped away the condensation with the sleeve of her sweater and peered out into the white blur. Headlights, cutting through the snow, coming straight down her street. Her stomach dropped. "No," she murmured. The car slowed, then stopped. Right in front of her house. The engine idled for a moment, then shut off. Gloria stepped back from the window, her pulse quickening again. Behind her, Daniel noticed the change. "What is it?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Because she already knew. She knew that car, knew the shape of it, the way it sat low and polished even under snow, knew who drove it. Her jaw tightened. "Oh, Lord," she whispered, because out there, in the middle of the worst storm Detroit had seen in years, standing between her and 8 men she had just chosen to save, was the last person she needed to see tonight. And he was already walking toward her door. The silhouette moved through the storm with confidence, not hesitation. Heavy boots pressed into the snow, steady, deliberate, like the blizzard had no authority over him at all. Gloria didn't need to see his face. She already knew. Charles Whitmore, her landlord. The man who had reminded her just 3 days ago, cold, calm, and without a trace of mercy, that she was 2 payments behind, that people like her didn't get second chances. The knock came again. Not desperate, not weak, firm, demanding. Gloria stood still for a moment, her fingers curling slightly at her sides. Behind her, 8 men sat wrapped in her blankets, holding her bowls, fighting to stay alive. In front of her, a man who could take everything she had left. The storm howled louder, like it was leaning in to watch. "Gloria," came his voice through the door, muffled but unmistakable. "I know you're in there." Her chest tightened. Of course he did. He always knew. She took a slow breath, then turned slightly, glancing back at the living room. Daniel was watching her now, eyes sharp despite the exhaustion. The others, quieter, still recovering, but aware. "Who is it?" Daniel asked, his voice low. Gloria hesitated. Then she said it. "My landlord." The word carried weight. Even the men who barely had strength to lift their heads seemed to understand what that meant. Power, control, threat. Another knock. "Open the door, Gloria." She closed her eyes for a second, then walked forward. Each step felt heavier than the last. When she reached the door, she didn't unlock it right away, Mr. Whitmore, she called through the wood, keeping her voice steady. It's not a good time. A short laugh came from the other side. It never is with you, he replied. Open the door. Gloria's jaw tightened. No. Silence, the kind that made the storm seem quieter by comparison. Then, "You're behind on your payments," Charles said, his tone shifting. Colder now, sharper, and I don't appreciate being ignored. Gloria glanced back again, at the men, at the blankets, at the bowls of soup, her house, her space, her responsibility. "I said it's not a good time," she repeated. A pause. Then his voice dropped lower. "You got company in there, Gloria?" Her stomach dropped. "How would you—" "I saw the bikes," he cut in. "Out by the road. Thought it was strange. Then I see lights on here. In the middle of a storm, you can barely breathe in." Another pause. "And now you won't open your door." Gloria didn't answer. Didn't move. Behind her, Daniel slowly set his bowl down. The others watched, quiet, tense. Charles exhaled audibly. "Let me guess," he continued. "You let them in. Not a question. A statement." "You have no idea what you're doing," he added. Gloria's hand tightened around the doorframe. "I know exactly what I'm doing," she said. A beat. Then a low chuckle. "No," Charles said. "You really don't." The handle rattled suddenly. He tried it. Locked. Gloria's heart jumped into her throat. "You can't just come in here," she snapped. "I own this property," he shot back instantly. "Don't confuse that word. Own." It hit something deep, something old. Gloria straightened, her shoulders pulling back, despite the tremble in her hands. "You may own the house," she said slowly, "but you don't own me." Silence again. Longer this time. Then his voice came back, tight. "You've got criminals in there." "They're freezing," Gloria said. "They're Hell's Angels. They're human beings." That landed harder than anything else. Inside, one of the men shifted. A quiet sound of agreement. Charles scoffed. "You think that matters?" he asked. "You think anyone's going to care when something happens to you?" Gloria didn't answer right away. Because the truth was, he wasn't entirely wrong. But she also knew something else, something deeper. "I care," she said finally. The wind slammed against the house again, rattling the windows violently. Charles sighed, like he was tired of the conversation. "Listen to me carefully," he said. "You've already got problems. You're behind on rent. You're barely keeping this place together. And now you're harboring 8 bikers in the middle of the night during a storm." He paused. "You're giving me a reason to evict you, immediately." The word hit like a physical blow. Gloria's breath caught. Behind her, the room went completely still. Daniel's eyes darkened. "Mr. Whitmore," Gloria said, her voice quieter now, but no less firm. "Those men out there would have died if I didn't open that door." "And that's your problem, how?" he replied without hesitation. That did it. Something in Gloria snapped. Not loud, not explosive, but solid, unshakable. She stepped closer to the door. "If I hadn't opened it," she said, "I wouldn't be able to live with myself." A long pause. Then, softer now, "And I've already lost enough sleep in this life." Charles didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice had changed. less sharp, more calculating. "You're making a mistake," he said. "Maybe," Gloria replied, "but it's mine to make." Another stretch of silence, then footsteps. Fading, crunching through the snow. Gloria stayed where she was, listening until the sound disappeared completely. Only then did she exhale, slow, shaky. She turned back toward the living room. 8 pairs of eyes on her now. Not fearful, not suspicious. Something else. Respect. Daniel spoke first. "He can really put you out?" he asked. Gloria nodded once. "He can try." The room went quiet again. Heavy. Because now it wasn't just about surviving the storm. It was about what came after. Gloria walked back to her chair, lowering herself slowly. Her body ached. Her head felt heavy, but her eyes stayed clear. "They're not throwing you out," Daniel said suddenly. Gloria looked at him. He held her gaze. Steady. Certain. For a moment, she almost believed him. But then she glanced around her small, worn house, at the peeling paint, at the cracked walls, at everything she stood to lose. And she shook her head gently. "Son," she said, her voice soft but grounded in years of hard truth, "people like him always win." Daniel didn't answer, but his eyes shifted again. Back to that picture on the wall. Lingering longer this time, like a memory trying to surface, and somewhere deep inside him, something began to connect. Daniel didn't say it out loud. Not yet. But his eyes lingered on that old photograph a second longer than before, the one hanging slightly crooked on Gloria's wall. A younger version of her stood behind a long, folding table, smiling gently, her hands mid-motion as she passed a plate to someone out of frame. Something about it felt familiar. He blinked, forcing his focus back to the room. This wasn't the time. Not with the storm still screaming outside. Not with 8 men barely holding on. And definitely not with the weight of what Gloria had just risked hanging over all of them. The silence stretched again, heavy and uncertain. Until a sharp crack of thunder split the sky. The lights flickered. Once, twice. Then everything went dark. For a moment, no one moved. The heater stopped with a soft click. The refrigerator went quiet. The storm, somehow, sounded louder than ever. "Damn," one of the men muttered weakly. Gloria's chest tightened. "No, no, no," she whispered, standing up too fast, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Power outage. In this weather? That wasn't just inconvenient. That was dangerous. She moved quickly toward the kitchen, feeling her way along the wall until her fingers found the drawer. She pulled it open and grabbed a small flashlight, clicking it on. A narrow beam cut through the darkness. Not much, but enough. She turned back toward the living room. 8 figures, wrapped in blankets, breathing visible again in the colder air. The warmth that had slowly started to build inside the house was already fading. "We're losing heat," Daniel said quietly, stating the obvious. Gloria nodded. "I know." She moved to the closet again, grabbing anything she could find, old coats, sweaters, even a pair of curtains she hadn't used in years. "Layer up," she said. "Everything you can. Don't worry about looking good." A weak chuckle came from one of the men. It didn't last long. They obeyed without question, pulling extra layers over themselves, adjusting blankets, pressing closer together. Gloria hesitated for just a second. Then she walked over and turned the thermostat all the way down. Daniel noticed. "You're shutting it off?" he asked. "It ain't doing anything without power," she replied. "And if it kicks back on later, we'll need it then." But that wasn't the real reason. The real reason was simpler. She couldn't afford to gamble with what little she had left. Daniel didn't argue. He just watched her, studied her. Like every move she made mattered more than she realized. Outside, the wind picked up again, slamming against the house so hard the walls groaned. A loud bang echoed from somewhere near the back. Gloria flinched. "Probably just the shed," she said quickly, more to reassure herself than anyone else. But her voice didn't carry the certainty she wanted it to. Minutes passed slow, heavy. The cold crept back in, inch by inch. Gloria moved between them again, checking faces, touching hands, making sure no one was slipping too far. "Talk to me," she said, stopping in front of one man whose eyes had started to close. "What's your name?" "Ray," he mumbled. "Ray what?" "Doesn't matter." "It matters to me," she said firmly. "Now say it again." He blinked, focusing. "Ray Carter." "That's better," she said. "Stay with me, Ray Carter." He nodded faintly. Across the room, Daniel shifted again, his gaze drifting back toward that photograph. This time, he leaned forward slightly. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "that picture—" Gloria followed his eyes. "Oh," she said softly. "That old thing?" She walked over, shining the flashlight on it. "You've had that a long time?" Daniel asked. "Long enough," she replied. "Back when I used to volunteer. Community kitchen over on Jefferson Street. Fed a lot of folks through there." Daniel's breath caught, just for a second. But Gloria didn't notice. She was too busy adjusting the frame, straightening it like she always did. "Wasn't much," she added, "but it helped." Daniel swallowed. Something flickered behind his eyes. Recognition. But it was still just out of reach. Before he could say anything, a new sound cut through the storm. Sirens. Faint. Distant. But real. Everyone froze. Hope. It hit the room all at once. "Is that—" someone started. "Yeah," Daniel said, his voice stronger now. "That's emergency services." Gloria moved back to the window, wiping away the fog again. The flashing lights were barely visible through the storm, but they were there. Red. Blue. Coming closer. Relief flooded her chest so fast it almost hurt. "Thank you, Lord," she whispered. But the relief didn't last long. Because as the lights drew closer, they slowed, then stopped. Not in front of her house. At the end of the street. Too far. Way too far. "They're not coming here," one of the men said quietly. Gloria's shoulders dropped slightly. Of course they weren't. Roads like hers. They were the last to get cleared, the last to get help. Always. The sirens stayed where they were, distant and useless. Hope faded. Cold reality settled back in. Daniel leaned back slowly, exhaling. "Then it's still on us," he said. Gloria nodded. It always was. The room fell quiet again, but something had shifted. Not fear, not exactly, something steadier, stronger. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were holding on together. Gloria moved back to her chair, lowering herself carefully, her body screaming in protest. She stared at the floor for a long moment, then spoke, softer now. "You know," she said, Most people would have kept driving tonight. No one answered. They would have seen you out there, she continued, and told themselves it wasn't their problem. Daniel looked at her. But you didn't, he said. Gloria shook her head slightly. No, she said. Then, after a pause, once upon a time, somebody didn't stop for me. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Personal. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. And this time, the connection hit harder. Not complete, but closer. Much closer. Before he could speak, another crash echoed from outside, louder, closer. The whole house shook, and for the first time that night, Gloria looked genuinely afraid, because whatever was happening out there was getting worse. The house shuddered again, a deep, low groan running through the walls like a warning. Gloria didn't move at first. She just stood there, flashlight trembling slightly in her hand, listening. The wind had changed. It wasn't just howling anymore. It was pushing. Pressing against the house like it wanted in. Another loud crack echoed from the back. Wood splintering, something giving way. That ain't the shed, Gloria whispered. Daniel was already trying to stand. Stay down, she snapped instinctively. You're not steady yet. I can help. You help by staying alive, she shot back. He froze for a second, then nodded reluctantly. Gloria moved toward the back hallway, her steps careful but quick. The beam of her flashlight bounced across the peeling walls, catching shadows that jumped and twisted with every gust outside. When she reached the kitchen door that led to the small back porch, her stomach dropped. The doorframe had shifted. Just slightly. But enough. A thin line of snow had begun to push through at the bottom, curling inward like a living thing. Lord, she breathed. She stepped closer, pressing her palm against the wood. Cold. Too cold. The kind that didn't stay outside. Behind her, she could hear movement, one of the men trying to follow. Don't, she called without turning. I got it. She looked around quickly. No tools, no boards, nothing strong enough to reinforce the door properly. This house had been holding on by willpower for years. Tonight, that wasn't enough. Another gust slammed into the structure, harder than before. The door rattled violently. Gloria grabbed the nearest chair and dragged it across the floor, wedging it under the handle. It wasn't much, but it gave resistance. Hold, she muttered under her breath. Just hold. For a moment, it did. She stood there, breathing hard, listening to the storm fight the barrier. Then slowly, she turned back toward the living room. 8 men. Watching her. Waiting. Depending on her. Her chest tightened again. She walked back slowly this time, her energy draining fast now, every step heavier, every breath shorter. By the time she reached her chair, she didn't sit. She dropped into it. Hard. The flashlight slipped slightly in her hand, the beam dipping toward the floor. No one spoke at first. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then Daniel's voice came, softer now. You're shaking. Gloria let out a short breath that almost sounded like a laugh. I've been shaking all night, she said. But he shook his head. No. This is different. She didn't answer. Because he was right. This wasn't fear anymore. This was something deeper. Exhaustion. The kind that settled into your bones and made everything feel just a little too heavy to carry. She leaned back slightly, closing her eyes for just a second. Just 1 second. The sound of the storm faded. The cold faded. And for a brief moment, so did the weight. "Ma'am." Daniel's voice again. Closer. She opened her eyes. He had moved. Not much, but enough to be sitting forward now, his blanket slipping slightly from one shoulder. "You can't fall asleep," he said quietly. Gloria blinked. "I ain't." "You can't," he repeated. There was urgency there now. Not panic, but understanding. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I know." But knowing didn't make it easier. Her body ached. Her hands were numb. Her head felt heavy, like it didn't belong to her anymore. She forced herself to sit up straighter, forced her eyes to stay open. "You still with me?" Daniel asked. She gave him a look. "Boy," she said, her voice thin but still carrying that edge of authority. "I've been holding folks together longer than you've been breathing." That got a faint smile out of him. Good. He needed that. They all did. Across the room, one of the men, Ray, shifted again, his breathing uneven. Gloria pushed herself up once more, slower this time. Every movement felt like it cost something now. She made her way over, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Stay with me," she said gently. His eyes fluttered open. "Trying," he whispered. "That's all I need," she said. She adjusted his blanket again, tucking it tighter around him. Her fingers lingered there for a second. Warmth. Still there. Good. She moved on. One by one. Checking. Touching. Counting. 8. Still 8. Still breathing. She turned back toward the kitchen again, her mind racing through what little she had left. Food was nearly gone. Heat was fading. Power was out. Storm getting worse. Help too far. Her chest tightened again, and this time, it didn't ease. She walked slowly back to her chair and sat down again, her hands resting in her lap. For a long moment, she just stared at them. At the men she had let in. At the situation she had chosen. And for the first time that night, doubt crept in. Quiet. Sharp. "What if?" she murmured. Daniel looked up. "What?" She shook her head slightly. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. What if she couldn't keep them alive? What if the house failed? What if the storm won? What if all of this was too much? Her throat tightened. She looked down at her hands. Old hands. Worn. Tired. Not built for nights like this anymore. "I might have made a mistake," she said softly. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Dangerous. Daniel stared at her. "No," he said. But she shook her head. "You don't understand," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper now. "I lose this house. I lose everything." No one spoke. Because they understood that. More than she realized. "I can't start over," she added. "Not at my age." Silence again. Longer this time. Then Daniel shifted, pulling himself up straighter despite the pain clearly written across his face. "You didn't make a mistake," he said firmly. Gloria looked at him. really looked. And for a second, she saw something in his eyes. Not just gratitude, not just survival. Something deeper, something personal. "You don't know that," she replied quietly. He held her gaze. "Yes," he said. "I do." The certainty in his voice made her pause, just for a moment. But before she could ask, his hand moved. Slowly, deliberately, into the inside pocket of his jacket. Gloria's eyes narrowed slightly, not in fear, but in curiosity. He pulled something out, small, worn, folded at the edges. A piece of paper. He stared at it for a second, then looked back at hers. And in that look, something shifted, something real, something that had been waiting beneath the surface all night. "You ever work on Jefferson Street?" he asked quietly. Gloria froze. Her breath caught. And for the first time since opening that door, the storm wasn't the only thing shaking the ground beneath her. Gloria didn't answer right away. She just stared at Daniel. Really stared. The flashlight in her hand trembled slightly, its beam catching the edges of his face. Tired, pale, but steady now in a way it hadn't been before. "Jefferson Street?" she repeated slowly. Daniel nodded once, careful, like he didn't want to push too hard. "Yes, ma'am." The room went still. Even the storm seemed to pull back just a little, like it was listening. Gloria's brow furrowed, her mind searching through years, decades of memory. Jefferson Street. A long table, steam rising from pots, plastic trays. Faces. So many faces. Too many to count. "I worked a lot of places," she said finally, her voice quieter now. "That was a long time ago." Daniel swallowed, his grip tightening slightly around the folded piece of paper in his hand. "I know," he said. It was a long time for me too." Something in his tone shifted. Not just curiosity anymore. Something closer to emotion. But before Gloria could ask anything else, a deep, heavy silence settled over the house. The storm outside began to fade. Not completely, but enough. The wind slowed from a scream to a low, steady hum. The banging against the walls softened. The pressure that had been building all night finally started to lift. Gloria turned her head slightly, listening. "That's," she murmured, "that's letting up." No one spoke. They just listened. And for the first time since the night began, there was space. Space to breathe. Space to feel something other than fear. One of the men exhaled slowly. "Thought it was going to take the whole house down," he muttered. Gloria almost smiled. "House been standing longer than most folks give it credit for," she said. But even as she said it, she glanced toward the back door. Toward the chair still wedged tight beneath the handle. Toward the thin line of snow creeping in at the bottom. Holding. Barely. Daniel followed her gaze. "We made it through the worst of it," he said quietly. Gloria didn't answer. Because she wasn't sure that was true. But she wanted it to be. She moved slowly back toward the kitchen, setting the flashlight down on the counter so it cast a soft glow into the room. The soup pot sat nearly empty now. The last of it had been shared. Nothing left. She stared at it for a second, then turned off the burner. No point wasting gas. Behind her, The men shifted again, less frantic now, more grounded. Breathing deeper. Color slowly returning to their faces. Alive. All of them. Gloria leaned her hands on the counter, closing her eyes for just a second. Just 1 second. And this time, she didn't fight the stillness. The silence wrapped around her like a blanket. Not warm, but not cruel either. Just quiet. When she opened her eyes again, the first hint of light was slipping through the window. Faint. Gray. Morning. We made it, one of the men whispered. Gloria turned. They were all looking at the window now, at the light, at proof that the night had passed. She walked slowly back into the living room, lowering herself into her chair again. Her body gave up the fight the moment she sat. Every muscle relaxed, every ounce of strength drained out of her, but her eyes stayed open. Watching. Counting. 8. Still 8. Still breathing. Daniel shifted again, sitting a little straighter now. His gaze moved from the window, to Gloria, then to the photograph on the wall, then back to the paper in his hand. He unfolded it slowly, carefully, like it mattered more than anything else in the room. Gloria noticed. "What is that?" she asked, her voice soft. Daniel hesitated, then held it up just enough for the light to catch it. It was a photograph. Old. Worn. Edges curled. Colors faded. Gloria leaned forward slightly, squinting. "I can't see that from here," she said. Daniel stood. Slowly. Carefully. Every movement deliberate, like he was still unsure of his own strength. He walked toward her, each step steady but heavy. The room watched him. All of them. Because whatever this was, it mattered. He stopped in front of her, and for a moment, he just looked at her. Not like before. Not as someone who had been rescued, but as someone who was searching for something he wasn't sure he'd find. Then he lowered the photograph into her hands. Gloria looked down. Her breath caught. A long table, metal trays, steam rising from a pot. And there, younger, stronger, standing behind it, her. She blinked. Once, twice. Her fingers tightened around the edges of the photo. "That's," she whispered. "That's me." Daniel nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The room fell completely silent. Because now, they all understood. Something had changed. Something bigger than the storm. Bigger than the night. Gloria looked up slowly, her eyes searching his face. "Where did you get this?" she asked. Daniel took a breath. Deep, steady, like he had been holding this moment in for years. "I've been carrying that," he said, his voice low, almost unsteady now, for a long time. Gloria's heart began to pound again. Not from fear. From something else. Something rising. Something she couldn't name yet. Daniel's gaze didn't leave hers. "I didn't know it was you," he said. Not at first. He glanced around the room, at the house, at the walls, at everything. Not until tonight. Gloria shook her head slightly, confusion mixing with something deeper. "What are you talking about?" she asked. Daniel stepped closer, and for the first time since she opened that door, his voice broke. "You fed me," he said. The words landed soft, but they hit like thunder. Gloria's breath caught in her chest. The room seemed to tilt slightly. "You fed me when nobody else would," Daniel continued. "On Jefferson Street." He swallowed hard. I was nothing back then. Nobody. Just another man in line trying to get through the day. Gloria stared at him, trying to see it, trying to find that face in the sea of memories she carried. So many people. So many years. She started, her voice barely there. But Daniel nodded. "I know," he said gently. "You helped a lot of people." He gestured to the photo still in her hands. "But you didn't just give food." He paused, searching for the right words. "You looked at people," he said, "like they mattered." The room stayed silent. Because now, this wasn't about the storm anymore. This was about something much bigger, much deeper. Gloria's hands trembled as she held the photograph. Her younger self stared back at her, a woman she barely recognized anymore. But maybe, just maybe, still was. Daniel took another breath. And this time, there was no hesitation. "I've been looking for you," he said. And just like that, everything shifted again. Gloria couldn't speak. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She just stared at Daniel, her eyes searching his face like the answer might be written somewhere in the lines, the years, the quiet strength behind his gaze. She finally whispered, her voice fragile. "I don't remember you." Daniel smiled softly. Not hurt. Not disappointed. Just understanding. "I didn't expect you to," he said. "You saw hundreds of people every week, maybe thousands over the years." He gestured gently toward the photograph still trembling in her hands. "But I never forgot you." The room was completely still now. Even the other men, those who had barely been able to sit upright hours ago, watched in silence, something like respect settling deeper into their faces. Gloria swallowed hard. Her chest felt tight. Not from the cold, from something rising too fast, too sudden. "I just served food," she said, shaking her head faintly. "That's all I did." Daniel took a slow step closer. "No," he said quietly. "That's not all you did." His voice carried something steady now. Certain. "You stayed," he continued. "You listened. You remembered names. You didn't rush people through like they were a problem to be solved." Gloria's eyes flickered. Something in her memory stirred. A long line. Cold mornings. Men and women standing quietly, trying not to look too tired. Too broken, too invisible. "And you never made anybody feel like they didn't belong there," Daniel added. Her breath caught. That part she remembered, because she had promised herself that. A long time ago. "No one eats like they don't matter," she had told Jerome once. She hadn't thought about that in years. "You used to..." Daniel hesitated, then smiled faintly. "You used to give extra portions when you thought nobody was looking." Gloria blinked. A small, almost embarrassed laugh escaped her. "Well, folks were hungry," she said. Daniel nodded. "I was one of those folks." The words settled deep into the room. Gloria's hand tightened around the photograph. "You said something to me once," Daniel continued. "I don't even think you realized it mattered." She looked up slowly. "What did I say?" Daniel took a breath, then repeated it, almost word for word. "You're not invisible in here. Not while I'm standing behind this table." Gloria's eyes widened. Because now she remembered. Not his face, not clearly, but the moment. A young man. Quiet. Avoiding eye contact. Standing at the end of the line like he was hoping no one would notice if he left. She had leaned forward, said those words, placed the plate in his hands, and moved on. Just another day. Just another person. But to him, it hadn't been. "I was at the lowest point of my life," Daniel said. "No job, no place to stay, no one who saw me as anything but in the way." His voice softened. "And then there you were." Gloria shook her head slowly, overwhelmed. "That was nothing," she said. "That's what people are supposed to do." Daniel looked at her, something deeper in his eyes now. "No," he said. "It's what good people choose to do." Silence followed. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was full. Full of something warm, something growing. Behind Daniel, one of the men shifted and stood up carefully. Then another, and another. One by one, the 8 men who had stumbled into her home hours ago now stood, still tired, still recovering, but different, stronger, more present. Gloria looked around, confused. What are y'all doing?" Daniel turned slightly, glancing at them, then back at her. "We didn't come back just to say thank you," he said. Her brow furrowed. "You already said enough," she replied. He shook his head. "No, ma'am," he said. "We didn't." He reached into his pocket again. This time he didn't pull out something old. He pulled out something new, a phone, modern, sleek, out of place in her small, worn living room. He tapped the screen, then held it up slightly. Gloria squinted. "I can't see that," she said. He stepped closer again, turning the screen toward her. Numbers, names, messages. He scrolled slowly. "These are people who owe me calls," he said. She frowned. "Daniel, and they answer when I call," he added. The tone had shifted again. Not pride, not arrogance, just fact. Gloria looked at him more closely now, really closely. And for the first time, she noticed something she hadn't before. Not in the leather, not in the patches, in the way he carried himself, in the way the others watched him. Not like equals, like someone they trusted, like someone they followed. "Who are you?" she asked quietly. Daniel didn't answer right away. Instead, one of the other men stepped forward. Tall, clean-shaven, his posture straight despite the exhaustion. "You should tell her," he said to Daniel. Daniel hesitated. Just for a second, then nodded. He turned back to Gloria. "We ride together," he said. "That part's true." She glanced at the vests. "I can see that. But that's not all we do." Something in the room shifted again. A different kind of tension now. Anticipation. Daniel gestured lightly toward the others. "Tom's a corporate attorney," he said. The man beside him nodded once. "Ray runs a logistics company across 3 states. Ray gave a tired but polite smile. "Marcus, investment firm. Eli, former military, now security consultant." One by one, they stepped forward. Names, roles, lives. None of them matched what Gloria had assumed when she opened that door. Her mouth opened slightly, closed again. She looked from one face to another, trying to make sense of it. "You're telling me," she said slowly, "all of you." Daniel nodded. We're not who people think we are. Gloria let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. A soft, disbelieving laugh escaped her. Well, ain't that something, she murmured. But Daniel wasn't done. That's not the part that matters, he said. Her eyes lifted back to his. Then what does? She asked. He held her gaze, steady, unshaken. The part that matters, he said, is what happens next. The words hung in the air, quiet, powerful. And for the first time since the storm began, Gloria felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel all night. Hope. But she didn't trust it. Not yet. Because hope had a way of showing up, right before everything fell apart. She looked down at her hands, at the photograph, at the past, then back up at Daniel. What happens next? She asked softly. Daniel took a breath. And for a moment, he smiled. Not like someone who had survived a storm, but like someone who had finally found something he'd been searching for. That, he said, depends on whether you're ready to let us help you. The room went still again, because now, the question wasn't about survival anymore. It was about change. And Gloria Hayes had spent a lifetime learning. Change didn't come easy, especially not for people like her. But as she looked around at the men she had saved, and the truth they had just placed in her hands, she realized something else. Maybe, just maybe, this night wasn't finished with her yet. Gloria didn't answer right away. She sat there, hands resting in her lap, the old photograph still between her fingers, her thumb brushing lightly over the faded edges like she was trying to feel the years that had passed through it. Let us help you. The words echoed in her mind, louder than the storm ever had. Help. That word had always been simple for her. You give it. You don't ask for it. You don't expect it back. That's how she had lived her whole life. So now, sitting in her worn-out chair, looking at 8 men who had walked into her house as strangers and were now standing in front of her like something else entirely, she didn't know what to do with it. I don't need anything, she said quietly. The room didn't move. Daniel didn't blink. Yes, you do, he said. Not harsh, not forceful, just honest. Gloria shook her head slightly. You don't understand, she replied. I've been taking care of myself a long time. Daniel nodded. I can see that. Her eyes flickered up. Then you know, she said, I don't take handouts. That word landed differently. Handouts. One of the men, Marcus, shifted slightly, his jaw tightening for just a second. Daniel caught it, then looked back at Gloria. This isn't a handout, he said. Then what is it? There it was, the question sitting right between them. Daniel took a slow breath, stepping closer again, his voice lowering. This is a return. Gloria frowned. A return? He nodded. For something you gave a long time ago. She looked down at the photograph again, then back at him. All I did was feed people, she said. Daniel shook his head. No, he said again, more firmly this time. You gave people a reason to keep going, Fons. Heavy. Honest. Because everyone in that room knew the difference. Gloria swallowed. Her throat felt tight again. That don't mean you owe me anything, she said. Daniel smiled faintly. We don't owe you, he said. We choose to. That stopped her. completely. Because that was something she understood. Choice. The same choice she made when she opened that door. The same choice she made every time she handed out an extra portion when nobody was looking. She looked at him differently now. Not as a stranger, not even as someone she helped, but as someone who had carried something forward, something she had forgotten. But he hadn't. "What kind of help are you talking about?" she asked quietly. Daniel didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced at the others. They nodded. Every single one of them. Then he turned back to her. "Let me show you something," he said. He tapped his phone again, scrolling quickly. Then he held it out. Gloria leaned forward slightly, squinting. On the screen, a building, clean, modern, glass front, a sign out front that read, "Reed Community Health Initiative." Gloria blinked. "What is that?" Daniel's voice softened. "That's one of the clinics we run." She looked at him. "Clinics?" He nodded. "We've got 5 of them across the state. Low cost, some free. Depends on who walks through the door." One of the men, Ray, spoke up. "We started small," he said. "Real small. Just helping folks who didn't have anywhere else to go." Marcus added, "A lot of people fall through the cracks. We try to catch a few of them." Gloria stared at the screen, then back at them. "You're telling me," she said slowly, "this is what you all do?" Daniel nodded. "It's part of what we do." Her mind tried to catch up. These men, these same men who had stumbled into her house, half frozen, barely able to speak, they weren't just surviving their own lives. They were helping other people survive theirs. And suddenly, the night made more sense. The way they moved, the way they spoke, the way Daniel had taken control when things got bad. "You've done this before," she said. It wasn't a question. Daniel gave a small nod. "A few times." Gloria leaned back slightly. The room felt different now. Not smaller, not crowded, just different. "You still ain't answered my question," she said. Daniel met her eyes. "What question? What kind of help you're offering me?" He took a breath. And this time, there was no hesitation. "We fix this," he said. He gestured around the room. At the walls, at the ceiling, at everything. Gloria followed his motion, her house, her reality. "We bring in people," he continued. "Contractors, inspectors. We get the structure solid, heating fixed, doors sealed. No more nights like this." Her chest tightened. That alone, that would change everything. But she didn't speak. Because she knew there was more. "There's your situation with Whitmore," Daniel added. At that name, her shoulders stiffened. Daniel saw it. "We look into it," he said. "Legally, properly." Marcus stepped forward slightly. "That kind of pressure he's putting on you," he said. "It's not always as clean as people think." Gloria's eyes narrowed. "You're saying he's doing something wrong?" Marcus shrugged slightly. "I'm saying people with power don't always expect anyone to question them." That hit. Hard. Because Gloria had lived that truth for years. "And if he is?" she asked. Daniel's voice didn't change. "Then we make sure it stops." Silence followed. Not tense, not uncertain, just real. Gloria looked at each of them. One by one. trying to understand what she was being offered. Not money, not charity. Something else, something deeper. "You don't even know me," she said. Daniel smiled softly. "I know enough." She shook her head again, slower this time. "This is too much," she whispered. "No," he said. "It's not enough." That line settled into the room like something permanent. Because for him, it wasn't. It couldn't be. Not after all those years. Not after all that waiting. Gloria looked down at her hands again. At the photograph. At the life she had lived. Quiet. Simple. Hard. And for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine something different. Something easier. Something better. But that thought scared her more than anything else that night. Because hope could take things away just as fast as it gave them. "What if this don't work?" she asked quietly. Daniel didn't look away. "Then we try again. Simple, direct, no promises, just commitment." And somehow, that meant more. Gloria sat there for a long moment, listening to the quiet morning, feeling the cold slowly lift, watching the light grow stronger through the window. Then, finally, she nodded. Once. Small, but real. "We'll talk about it," she said. Daniel didn't push, didn't celebrate. He just nodded back. "That's all I'm asking." Outside, the storm had finally passed, but inside that house, something much bigger had just begun. The morning light grew stronger, pushing its way through the frost-lined windows, stretching across the worn floorboards like it was reclaiming the space from the night. For the first time in hours, the house felt still. Not empty, not cold in the same way. Just quiet. Gloria sat back in her chair, her hands resting on her knees now, the photograph placed gently beside her. She hadn't let it out of her reach, though. Not completely. Daniel stood across from her, no longer leaning, no longer barely holding himself together. He still looked tired, everyone did, but there was a steadiness in him now that hadn't been there before. The others had moved around slowly, almost instinctively. One opened the curtains a little more. Another stacked the empty bowls neatly by the sink. Someone folded the blankets with careful hands, like they understood they had borrowed more than warmth. Gloria watched all of it in silence. They didn't act like men who had just taken. They acted like men who understood what it meant to receive. That mattered, more than anything else they had said. She finally spoke again, her voice low. "You said you've been looking for me." Daniel nodded. "For years," he said. She frowned slightly. "But why?" she asked. "Why keep looking? You got your life, you built something. Sounds like you did just fine without me." Daniel let out a quiet breath. "It never felt finished," he said. Gloria tilted her head slightly. "Finished." He nodded. "I walked out of that place with a full stomach," he said, his eyes drifting for a second, like he could still see it. "But more than that, I walked out feeling like I wasn't invisible anymore." He paused. "And when that happens to you, when someone sees you when the world doesn't, you don't just forget it." Gloria's fingers tightened slightly on her knees. She didn't say anything, but she felt it. Because she knew what it felt like to not be seen, to be passed by, to be dismissed. Daniel took another step closer. "I told myself I'd come back one day," he continued. "Tell you what you did. Show you it mattered." Gloria shook her head gently. "You didn't owe me that." "I know," he said. but I needed it. That landed differently, because it wasn't about repayment. It was about closure, about something unfinished finally finding its end. Or maybe its beginning. Gloria leaned back slowly, exhaling. "Well," she said quietly, "you found me." Daniel smiled. "Yeah," he said. Then his expression shifted slightly, more serious, more grounded. "And now I'm not walking away again." The room grew still at that. Because this was the moment. The point where words either stayed words or became something real. Gloria looked at him carefully. "You don't even know what you're promising," she said. Daniel didn't hesitate. "Yes, I do." She raised an eyebrow slightly. "Do you?" He nodded. "I know what it's like to have nothing," he said. "I know what it's like to depend on somebody else's choice just to get through the day." His voice stayed calm, but there was weight behind it now. Real weight. "And I know what it feels like when someone steps in and changes that," he added. Gloria studied him for a long moment, then glanced around the room again. At the men. At the house, at the cracks in the ceiling, the patched walls, the door that barely held through the night. "You fix this place," she said slowly. "That don't fix everything." Daniel nodded. "I know." "You deal with Whitmore," she continued. "That don't mean something else won't come up next month." "I know that too." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Then what exactly are you offering me?" Daniel didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped back slightly, giving her space, giving her the room to see it clearly. Then he spoke. "We're offering you a way out of surviving," he said. Silence. That sentence hung in the air longer than anything else that had been said all morning. Gloria blinked. Once, slow, because that word, surviving, it had been her whole life. Not living, not thriving, just getting through, day by day, month by month, bill by bill, loss by loss. "What does that even look like?" she asked quietly. Daniel turned slightly, gesturing toward the window. Outside, the storm had left everything covered in white. Clean. Still. Like a reset. "It looks like you not having to choose between heat and food," he said. Gloria's throat tightened. "It looks like your home being yours," he continued, "not something someone else can take whenever they feel like it." Her eyes flickered. "It looks like you waking up without that weight sitting on your chest every morning." She looked down, because she knew that weight. Better than anyone. "And it looks like you doing what you've always done," Daniel finished, "but without it costing you everything." The room stayed quiet. No one rushed her. No one pushed, because they all understood. This wasn't a simple yes or no. This was her whole life shifting direction. And that kind of change didn't come easy. Gloria leaned forward slowly, resting her elbows on her knees. Her hands came together, fingers interlocking. She stared at them for a long moment. Then she spoke. "What happens if I say no?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Then we still make sure you're safe," he said. "We still fix what needs fixing from last night." She looked up. "And then?" "Then we leave," he said. Simple. Honest. No pressure. That mattered. A lot. Gloria nodded slowly, then leaned back again, her eyes drifting toward the window. The sunlight was stronger now. Warmer. The kind that made things look different. Not better, just clearer. She took a deep breath, then another. And for the first time since the storm started, she allowed herself to think about tomorrow. Not just surviving it, living it. The thought scared her, but it also pulled at something inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. She turned her head slowly, looking back at Daniel, at the man she didn't remember, but who had remembered her for decades. "You really been carrying that picture all this time?" she asked. Daniel smiled faintly. "Everywhere," he said. Gloria let out a soft breath. Then, after a long pause, she nodded. Not big, not dramatic, but real. "We'll see," she said. Daniel didn't push for more, didn't need to. Because in that moment, that was everything. Outside, the snow began to melt slowly under the rising sun. And inside that small, worn house, a life that had been stuck in survival for years, finally started to move forward. But not without resistance. 2 days later, the snow had melted into gray slush along the curbs, and the quiet street outside Gloria's house returned to its usual stillness. Inside, everything looked the same. Same worn couch, same chipped table, same cracks in the ceiling. But something invisible had shifted. Gloria could feel it in the way she woke up that morning. Not lighter, not exactly, but less heavy. Like the weight she carried every day had loosened just enough to let her breathe. She stood at the kitchen sink, washing the same cup she used every morning, when she heard it, a car door slam. Her body tensed instantly. She didn't need to look. She already knew. Charles Whitmore. Again. But this time, he didn't knock. The door opened. Hard. Without permission. Gloria turned sharply. "You don't just walk into my house like that," she said, her voice firm. Charles stepped inside, brushing snow off his coat, his expression tight, irritated. "I told you I'd be back," he said. Gloria crossed her arms. "I didn't invite you." "You don't have to," he replied coolly. "This is still my property." That word again. Property. It landed differently this time. Not heavier. Just weaker. Gloria didn't step back. Not this time. "What do you want?" she asked. Charles glanced around the house, his eyes scanning everything like he was measuring it, judging it. "I've been getting calls," he said. Gloria frowned. "Calls?" He looked at her, his jaw tightening. "From lawyers." Her heart skipped. Just for a second, then steadied. "And?" she asked. Charles took a step closer. "They're asking questions," he continued, "about my contracts, about how I handle tenants, about this property." He gestured vaguely around him. "And they're not asking nicely." Gloria said nothing. Because she already knew Daniel. Charles watched her carefully. "That wouldn't have anything to do with your little overnight guests, would it?" he asked. Gloria held his gaze. "They're not guests," she said. Charles let out a short, sharp laugh. "Oh, really? Then what are they?" She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Because at that exact moment, another car pulled up outside, then another and another. Charles frowned, turning toward the window. "What now?" he muttered. Gloria didn't move. She already knew. The front door opened again, this time Slowly, respectfully. Daniel stepped inside, followed by two men in suits, clean, sharp, completely out of place in the small, worn space. "Good morning, Ms. Hayes," Daniel said calmly. Gloria gave a small nod. "Morning." Charles turned fully now, his expression shifting from irritation to confusion. "What is this?" he demanded. Daniel didn't even look at him at first. He walked over to Gloria. "May we?" he asked gently, gesturing toward the room. She nodded. "Go ahead." Only then did Daniel turn to Charles. "And you are?" he asked. Charles straightened slightly. "Charles Whitmore, owner of this property." One of the suited men stepped forward. "Daniel already told us," he said. "We've reviewed your files." Charles blinked. "Excuse me?" The man held up a folder, thick, organized, official. "There are several irregularities in your leasing agreements," he continued calmly, "particularly with Ms. Hayes." Gloria felt her chest tighten again. Not from fear, from something else, something building. Charles scoffed. "You think you can walk in here and—" "We're not here to think," the man interrupted evenly. "We're here to act." Silence. Sharp, controlled, because this wasn't the same kind of power Charles was used to. This was something else, something he couldn't push around. Daniel stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "You threatened to evict her," he said. Charles's jaw tightened. "She's behind on payments." "And you've been overcharging utilities," the other man added, "and failing to meet basic maintenance requirements." Gloria's eyes widened. "What?" she whispered. Charles turned toward her sharply. "That's not—" "It is," the man said, opening the folder. "We've got records." The room shifted, completely. Charles took a step back. For the first time, he didn't look in control. "You don't understand," he started. "No," Daniel said quietly. "You don't understand." The words landed heavy, final. Charles looked at him now. Really looked, and something clicked. "Who are you?" he asked. Daniel didn't hesitate. "I'm the man who's making sure she doesn't lose her home." Silence. Charles's expression hardened. "This isn't over," he said. Daniel nodded. "You're right," he replied. "It's not." Another pause. Then, Charles turned, walked out. Not fast, not defeated, but not in control either. The door closed behind him. And just like that, the air in the room changed. Completely. Gloria stood still, her hands trembling slightly. "What just happened?" she asked. Daniel looked at her. "That," he said, "is what happens when someone finally stands with you." Her throat tightened. Because no one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever stood like that for her before. The suited man stepped forward again. "Ms. Hayes," he said gently, "we'll be in touch. You're protected now." Protected. The word echoed, soft, unfamiliar, but real. They left quietly after that. No noise, no show, just action. Daniel stayed. Gloria looked at him for a long moment. "You didn't have to do all that," she said. He smiled slightly. "I told you," he replied. "We choose to." She shook her head slowly, still trying to understand, still trying to catch up. But this time, She didn't push it away, because something had changed. Not just outside, not just with Charles. Inside her. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone in the fight. And that changed everything. She looked around her house again. Same walls, same floors, same life, but not the same story anymore. And standing there in the quiet aftermath, Gloria Hayes realized something she never thought she'd say. Maybe, just maybe, people like him didn't always win. And maybe, people like her didn't always lose. The thought stayed with Gloria long after the door closed behind Charles. It lingered in the quiet. In the way the sunlight stretched further across her floor, in the way the air inside her home no longer felt heavy. Daniel didn't speak right away. He gave her time. Time to stand there. Time to breathe. Time to feel what had just happened. Because moments like that, they didn't rush. They settled. Gloria walked slowly back toward her chair, but she didn't sit this time. Instead, she stood by the window, looking out at the street. The snow had melted into patches now, revealing the pavement underneath. Cars moved again. Life continued. But something inside her had shifted permanently. She could feel it, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in something quieter, stronger, steadier. "You changed my life twice," Daniel said behind her. Gloria didn't turn. She just listened. "First time," he continued, "you gave me a plate of food when I had nothing." He paused. "And this time, you opened your door when you had every reason not to." Gloria let out a soft breath. "I just did what needed doing," she said. Daniel shook his head slightly. "That's not something everybody does." She turned then, looked at him. At the man who had once stood in a line she barely remembered. At the man who now stood in her living room like he had always belonged there. "You said you weren't walking away again," she said. "I'm not," he replied. The certainty in his voice didn't feel overwhelming anymore. It felt right. Like something she didn't have to fight. Daniel stepped forward slightly. "We've already started the process," he said. "Repairs, legal work, everything." Gloria raised an eyebrow. "Already?" He smiled faintly. "We don't wait." She let out a small, almost amused breath. "No, I can see that." He glanced around the room. At the walls, at the furniture, at the life she had held together with determination alone. "We'll fix this place," he said. "Make it safe. Make it yours." Gloria's eyes softened slightly. "My home's always been mine," she said. Daniel nodded. "I know," he said. "We're just making sure nobody can take that from you again." That mattered, more than anything else. Because it wasn't about giving her something new. It was about protecting what she had already built. The others began to move toward the door. One by one. Not rushing, not lingering too long. They stopped in front of her, each offering a quiet thank you. Not exaggerated, not dramatic. Just real. Ray gave a small nod. "Wouldn't be here without you," he said. Marcus added, "You gave us a chance to make it right." Gloria shook her head slightly. "You made it right yourselves," she said. Daniel was the last to move. He stopped in front of her again. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Gloria reached out. Not quickly, not dramatically, just gently. She placed her hand on his arm. "You did good," she said. The words were simple, but they carried everything she had lived through, everything she believed in, everything she had passed on without even knowing it. Daniel nodded. His eyes softened. "Because you showed me how," he said. That was it. That was the truth of it. Not debt, not repayment. Something deeper. Something that had moved through time, from her to him, and now from him back into the world. He stepped back slightly, then turned toward the door. The others followed. And just like that, the house was quiet again. Gloria stood there for a long moment after they left, listening, feeling, letting the silence settle. Then she walked slowly back to the kitchen, the same sink, the same cup, the same life, but not the same weight. She reached for the faucet, then stopped. Her eyes drifted to the photograph sitting on the counter. She picked it up again, looked at it longer this time, at the woman she used to be, and the woman she still was. "You did all right?" she murmured softly. A small smile touched her lips. Then she set the photo down carefully, not tucked away, not hidden, right where she could see it. Outside, a truck pulled up. Workers stepped out, tools in hand. The sound of rebuilding had already begun. Gloria looked toward the door, then back at her home, at her life, at everything that had almost been lost, and everything that was now being restored. She took a deep breath, then another, and for the first time in a very long time, she felt something rise inside her. Not fear, not worry, not survival. Peace. Later that week, a small sign appeared outside her home. Simple, clean, new. Hayes Community Outreach. Coming soon. Gloria stood in the doorway, reading it slowly. Then she looked up at the sky. Clear, blue, endless. She smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything had changed. All because, on a night when the world told her to close her door, she chose to open it. And somewhere out there, someone else would feel that choice. Someone else would carry it forward. Because kindness didn't disappear. It moved. It grew. It returned. And Gloria Hayes, the woman no one saw, had become the reason someone else would never feel invisible again. She stepped outside, closed the door behind her, and walked forward. Not just surviving anymore, but finally, living. If this story touched you, leave a comment and share it with someone who needs to hear it. When Gloria Hayes stood in that doorway and chose to open it instead of turning away, she didn't just save 8 men from a storm. She unknowingly stepped back into a story she had started decades ago and never realized would come back to find her. Sometimes, the smallest act you think no one remembers becomes the very thing that changes your life years later. What Gloria did that day on Jefferson Street wasn't big in her eyes, but to Daniel, it was the moment everything began. So today, think about one simple thing you can do for someone. Just one. You don't have to fix their whole life. Just show up the way Gloria did, and let that moment speak for itself. Have you ever helped someone and never knew what came of it? Tell me below. I read every comment. And in the next story, you'll see what happens when someone walks away instead, and how that choice changes everything.